Back to Hoopin' Helmets. This is episode 9, and I'm Brody Jacobson, joined alongside by Lucas DeVries, and today we're going to cover the college football playoff, and later on the show we're going to go into the conference play in college basketball. And let's start it off with the first of the 4 games on New Year's Eve tomorrow night, Penn State and Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl in Arizona.
Well, Penn State's the heavy favorite in this one, as they should be, because Boise State is your classic mid-major on their Cinderella story, trying to make a run, see how far they can get. But newsflash, this is not college basketball, so it's going to be way tougher for them. We see it happen in March Madness all the time. This is college football. Football is a different sport. It's not you can be hot at shooting. It's just the best team wins pretty much almost every game. And I think Boise State's going to have some trouble against this Penn State front on defense. And many people think that Ashton Jeanty is going to run through them. Ashton Jeanty is insane. You're right, Ashton Jeanty is insane. He is so good. But, will it be enough? And will Boise State be able to stop Drew Aller? He's been cooking recently. I don't know.
Yeah, right. You talk about, this mismatch between Boise State and a Power 4 team. Penn State, they're filled with 5 stars. So are all these playoff teams. They're filled with the top players in the country. Boise State simply doesn't have that. They have Jeanty. He is one of the top players in the country. I think he is the best player in the country. But then again, you're going against one of the top fronts in the country in Penn State. And there's one guy I'm looking at in particular, and that's Abdul Carter. He's going to be a top 10 pick in this NFL draft. He does everything. You can drop him back in coverage. He can play spy, zone. And if he needs to, and when he will, he can blitz you. And he's going to be a problem for Maddox Matson.
Yeah. Maddox Matson, he's definitely a gritty guy at the quarterback position. He grew up. He's your type of guy that's just going to come in and do everything he can to win the game. He kind of reminds me a bit of Diego Pavia on Vanderbilt. Very similar quarterbacks. I don't know if it's going to be enough against Penn State, but we'll see what he can do. Let's see if he can give Boise State a chance, and we'll see if they can get the offense moving a bit, put some pressure on Drew Aller.
Yeah, and you talk about him being a gritty guy. He beat out the number 1 prospect in the country,
Exactly.
Malachi Nelson. So he's proven. There's a reason he's starting for this Boise State team, and he's been the anchor. He's the one who gets the ball every single play. So he's really led this team. But their offense, we continue to say, we're still not sure what we're going to get. We know they have Camp Camper, outside receiver. We know they have Jeanty. But if they get behind, can they really come back?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see. I watch Army a lot. I'm an Army fan, and the saying for them is, if you get behind, you're pretty much cooked, unless you're playing a bad team. We saw it against Notre Dame. Boise State's different because they can somewhat pass the ball, but it's very, very similar in the way that they can't really pass it proficiently, especially if the defense knows the pass is coming. So Boise State cannot get behind, I think, more than 14 points. And if they do, this game is pretty much over, and Penn State will be moving on to the next round.
Yeah, and then you talk about this Penn State offense, and are we sure they're really going to be able to put away a team? They had help from their defense with the pick sixes against SMU. And with these James Franklin squads, we continue to say it, they rely on the run, and they're not really able to blow out these teams. So do you really trust this Penn State offense?
I wouldn't say I trust them, really. I think there's better offenses in the playoffs. I think there's way better offenses that aren't in the playoffs or have already gotten eliminated. But I think I trust their offense more than Boise State's. And I feel like not really by that much. I feel like I similar trust, but their defense is definitely going to be the key. I know we're talking about offenses right now, but if Penn State does what they did against SMU, Boise State literally just does not stand a chance in this game. But if they let Boise State hang around, Penn State has way more pressure than Boise State does, and we'll see if that has an impact on Drew Aller, considering he's definitely a young quarterback, and Madsen's an experienced player. Jeanty, top players in the country, he's pretty experienced. Boise State, this team, don't put them away. They're still going to come out fighting. So if this game gets close, we could see Penn State start to choke a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask you one last question from this game. If you are the Boise State head coach, what are your keys to victory? Now, if I was the coach, I think you just have to run the ball, try to slow this game down. Because the more manageable you can be in this game, not getting behind, it's the key to upsets in college football. But if you're the coach, what are you preaching to your team?
Well, first off, the run game is going to be so big in this game. You got to stop the run game from Penn State. Or they have Nicholas Singleton, they have Katron Allen. They have a two-headed monster at the RB position. If they can slow them down enough where they just can't run the ball like at ease, we saw Penn State do it. We saw Texas absolutely abuse that against Clemson. And if they can do that, if their defense can't get off the field, they're going to be behind the game, like we said, and that's my second key. You can't get behind in the game. If you get behind in the game, you're going to have to pass the ball, and I just don't think they'll do that on like a clean enough scale. They're not going to be able to come back. And then, like Brody said, my last key is going to be run the ball. Get Genty going. If Genty gets going, no one can stop him. Abdul Carter can't even stop him if Genty gets going. If Genty gets going and you slow this game down, you can get close, and that's where Penn State might start choking.
Yeah, right. You talk about Abdul Carter not stopping him. This Oregon defense wasn't able to stop the two-headed monster, and they weren't able to stop Genty. So we're not sure if Penn State will be able to stop him. Let's move on to the next game. Texas against Arizona State.
So it was very interesting because earlier this week in an interview, Sam Levitt said that he's a better quarterback than Quinn Ewers. And then Quinn Ewers' response to that is, he's just like, oh, well, that's nice. He's had a great year. And every time we see stuff like that, usually it's always Quinn Ewers is like media trained and whatever, and he's trying to be like the bigger man per se, and usually his team would come out on top. But I actually think this is good news for Arizona State fans. I think this Arizona State team is really coming in here with a chip on their shoulder, considering that they are big underdogs to this Texas team, and they really do think they have a shot in this game. I think Texas will probably win, but like Arizona State, you cannot sleep on them in this game because they're going to come out guns a-blazing, and who knows what could happen. They're a good football team.
Yeah, and you like to see that from like a quarterback like Sam Levitt, a freshman. Yeah. It's the culture that I think Kenny Dillingham has really preached into this team, that we can win. They've already accomplished a lot, considering they were predicted to finish last in the Big 12, and now you're getting a first-round bye in the college football playoff. But let's move it over to the Texas offense. And what did they do well against Clemson? They controlled the line of scrimmage. They ran the ball. Quintravion Wisner was a little banged up, but he should be good to go in this one. Jaden Blue, we know what he can do. And if Texas wants to win the game, I think they continue just do damage on the ground.
Yeah, well, Texas, Jaden Blue single-handedly won Texas the game, and obviously their O-line. It was pretty much their O-line, actually. But their run game literally beat Clemson single-handedly. If they couldn't run the ball in Clemson, they are not getting past that round. Their defense considered to be one of the top defenses in the country. They cannot stop Clemson all game long. And Quinn Ewers, every time he's been in one of these situations, he usually chokes. We saw him in the fourth quarter. He was not playing well. Every time he threw a pass, all Texas fans must have been really nervous because I felt like it was going to be an interception. We just could not stop the run to save our lives, and that's why Texas won that game. And Arizona State, they got to be very careful because they're very similar to Clemson. And yes, they can score points. Yes, they're a great team. They can run the ball. But these SEC teams, man, I don't really know how else to put it. They're just different. And they have, like Rich said, they just have 5 stars. They have huge guys up front. And if you can't at least mess with them a little bit, you're not going to win the football game if you just let them dominate you. And that's what Texas did to Clemson. We'll see if they can do it to Arizona State.
Yeah, and that brings up another part of the playoffs here, the element of how hard was your schedule, because Texas, they're battle-tested somewhat. They're not completely battle-tested like a team like Georgia who's in the playoffs, but Arizona State, they're not really tested.
Yeah.
Iowa State in the conference championship, they blew them out. Iowa State, they barely beat Miami, but again, Texas is a level above these teams. Once again, Arizona State, they can come from behind, but against a good Texas defense, I think you got to keep this game close.
Yeah, agreed. I think Arizona State will definitely put up a good fight in this one, though. It should be a fun game to watch.
So, we talked about Junty last game. Scadaboo's a top running back. Kenny Dillingham's got to get Scadaboo the ball here, but the question is, can he get by this Texas defense?
Do I think he'll get by necessarily? I think he'll definitely have a decent game. I think I could see him going for over 100 yards possibly. I think he'll run the ball pretty well. He's a fantastic running back, don't get me wrong. He's probably the second best running back in the league behind Genty. But this Texas D-line, they're just different. They have all the big 5 stars up front. And if Cam Scatterby, I think he's tough enough, he's good enough. Arizona State, they still have a good offensive line. They're still a good team. They'll definitely be able to run the ball. But will it be enough is the real question. Like, they're going to need him to run for many yards if they want to win this game. Because we all know Texas, they almost had 300 rushing yards in Clemson. That is just ridiculous. If they do that again, Cam Scatterby is going to need to have a legacy game or else they're going to lose.
Yeah, and you talk about legacy games. We've seen a lot of legacy games in the Rose Bowl in the past. Ohio State, C.J. Stroud, and Ajigba. Just 3 years ago in the Rose Bowl. 300 passing yards. What did Ajigba have? 250 receiving yards? Something crazy. Ohio State takes on Oregon. Familiar foes. Oregon beat them in the regular season. They're the only undefeated team. But what do you see here?
These next 2 games, the first 2 are both like 10, 11 point lines, projected to be not the closest. We could get a close game. Those 2 are more like first round games, I'd like to put it, because Boise State and Arizona State have like the vibes of like a first round team. But these next 2 games, these are, I feel like, national championship contender teams. Like, these teams actually like have a chance to maybe make a run to the finals. So obviously, these 2 get the later spots, and these 2, they're going to be thrillers. I think both of them will be really close. I don't know, like, about thriller, like, high scoring. I don't know about Georgia, Notre Dame really being that high scoring. But Oregon, Ohio State, yes, there will be a lot of points scored in that game.
Yeah, I think the total is set at 55 right now. I think we could be seeing, like, a 35-35 game, like the Big Ten championship.
Yeah, I agree.
I thought that Penn State Oregon game was going to be low scoring. I was completely wrong.
Same.
This Oregon offense can pick you apart. And we've seen Ohio State struggle against good defenses. Does Oregon have that nitty-gritty rivalry defense Michigan has? No. And Will Howard here at Ohio State, if he wants to win this game, he's going to have to be very smart. He knows from last time what happens when you don't slide at the proper time, as Ohio State lost that game. His composure is going to be big in this one, because if they get behind, he has to be able to stay composed, complete your passes, be poised, and he has to know when to strike.
Yeah, for me, the key in this game isn't really a key. I feel the main thing for me that is getting me to take Ohio State in this, which it's that they lost to them the first time, and that sad feeling that they have, that feeling that they lost by 1 point because he didn't slide in time. And it was just such a close game. It was at Oregon, too. You have to keep that in mind. Ohio State's been in the Rose Bowl before. They're in these moments all the time. They're always in the playoffs. Oregon hasn't been in the playoffs for a while since Marcus Mariota. That's why I think Ohio State has the edge in this one. But Oregon, Dan Lanning, he's going to have them fired up for sure. They're going to have Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, Dylan Gabriel. They're going to score some points. So we'll see if Ohio State can do what they did against Tennessee. But if they do, Oregon, watch out. Your undefeated season could be ended.
Yeah, you talk about being fired up, and that stems straight from the coaches. Kenny Dillingham versus Ryan Day. Dan Lanning versus Ryan Day. It's a bit of a chess match, but I feel like Dan Lanning already has him in checkmate, because we don't know what Ryan Day is as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
We're unsure, do the players even like him there? How is he getting these recruits? You know, Dan Lanning, you see from all the videos, he has his team fired up for each and every game. Ryan Day, he said, quiet please, after their last playoff game to move them into this round. So if Dan Lanning can keep his team fired up for this one, Oregon's going to be really tough to beat.
That's definitely true.
All right, let's move it over to Notre Dame, Georgia, the nightcap on this 4-game quarterfinal card.
So the key to this one, obviously, for Notre Dame is going to be, can you run the ball? They've been running the ball all year long very well at an efficient rate. Jeremiah Love he's just a different beast, man. He is so good. He's out there hurdling everybody, running all over everybody. But Georgia, that is different. We saw them early in the year against Texas A&M, another SEC defense. Texas A&M, they're a fine football team, but they're really not that great. They're like a mid-tier SEC. And they kind of struggled against Texas A&M early in the year. I think they ended up scoring like 20 points, but that was really close. And they haven't really played another team of that caliber all year long. The highest-ranked team they've played is Army, besides Indiana. But that's just not going to get it done, I think. And or Georgia, there's just way more battle tested. Everyone's saying, "Oh, well, Carson Beck's out. They don't have their quarterback." I agree. I feel like Gunnar Stockton won't be as affected as Carson Beck, even though people think that Carson Beck wasn't good. Gunnar Stockton, he had a great game because people weren't planning for him. People will now be planning for him, so it'll be very interesting to see if Georgia can score the ball. Because if they do, it will definitely be tough for Notre Dame to win.
Yeah, and you talk about Jeremiah Levin. We know Kirby Smart plays his mint defense, is what he calls it, where he puts two 350-pound defensive tackles, the biggest 5-stars you can find in the entire country. You look at Jordan Davis, who's in the NFL, Jalen Carter, they've had a few of them. And these guys are beasts. So Jeremiah Levin, if he sees one of them when he's running, I'd be scared. This Notre Dame offensive line, again, we're not sure what to make of it. Who have they really been able to control the line of scrimmage against? The strength of schedule, it's really lacking for them.
Agreed. How about we do some picks now?
Yep, let's move on to our picks. And let's start off with Penn State, Boise State.
So, like I said, Penn State, they're coming into this as the big favorites. If this game gets close, I think it could get frisky. We could have maybe an upset, but I don't see it happening. I see a game where Boise State, they'll be able to start off somewhat strong, but mid-first quarter, Penn State's going to score like a touchdown or something like that, and then it might go downhill for a little bit. I could see them putting up some points on the board. I think it might be like a 31-13 game, Penn State, but I think Penn State will get it done as they drew a very easy bracket draw, and they're very lucky for that.
You know, I actually think Boise State, they're going to be fired up for this game. And I don't just mean fired up. Obviously, they're going to be fired up. They're in the playoffs. Ashton Judge's going to have a huge chip on his shoulder now that he didn't win the Heisman. And Boise State, they're a smart team. I think they're going to be able to play with Penn State. But then again, can they come late? I don't think we're talking about garbage time points for Boise State. I think they just lose by 10 points straight up. I'm going to go with Penn State, but Boise State, I like them in a close one here. Yeah. Then Texas, Arizona State in the Fiesta Bowl.
I think this one, it's gonna be a pretty good game through 3 quarters, and we'll get to the 4th quarter with Texas holding like a 10-point lead, but it will seem like Arizona State's very much in the game. But I think just like Clemson, it's gonna be very similar to that game. I think they're gonna break out in the run game, and it won't be enough for Arizona State. I see a very similar game script going for in this game, and I'm going to pick Texas 34-20 over Arizona State. But like Brody said, it's not going to be garbage time points. It will be like an actual 14-point deficit where Arizona State, they'll have some chances to maybe pull off the upset, but they won't be able to deliver, and I think Texas is going to win by like 14.
Yeah, and my mind wants me to think, just like Boise State, that Arizona State, they're a good football team. I mean, you look at your guys, but then again, you have to think about what production are they putting up against high-profile teams. Kenny Dillingham, I like him here. And I actually like Arizona State to keep this one close. Closer than 14 points. But then again, Texas, they're just too physical. They're going to control the line of scrimmage. Wisner and Blue, they're going to combine for over 200 rushing yards. And it's going to be a good night. I'm going to take Texas. Then we have Ohio State, Oregon in the Rose Bowl.
So this is the biggest matchup of them all, many people think. And those people are right. This is a national championship caliber matchup. I'm not sure of it, but these very well could be the 2 best teams in odds right now. A huge time collision, one that already happened in the regular season, was an absolute thriller. Many people are going back and forth thinking, Oregon, their offense is too explosive. Ohio State, they look so good against Tennessee. It's going to be a great game, but I just see Ohio State getting it done at the end. I feel like Will Howard is really going to have a great game in this one. He played so well against Tennessee. I think he's going to carry it into this game. I see Ohio State winning this one very close. Maybe like 42-35 or 38-35 or something like that. And I think that it's going to come down to the last drive for Ohio State or Oregon with like 5 minutes left in the 4th quarter. And it's going to be just such a great game.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute thriller. But I got to ride with Dan Lanning. Quack, quack. Give me the Oregon Ducks.
All right.
Notre Dame, Georgia in the nightcap.
Okay, so this one's very interesting. Georgia, they don't have their quarterback. Does that mean they're going to lose to Notre Dame, who hasn't been battle-tested? Maybe. Notre Dame, they've been running over their opponents all year. Does that mean they'll be able to run over Georgia? Maybe. But I've been picking against them all year long. And I picked them last week when everyone else didn't. I was right. That's why I'm going to put on a Notre Dame cap today. And I think that the Irish will do they'll do fine, but it won't be enough. The Georgia Bulldogs are going to take down Notre Dame. How is Notre Dame going to run the ball on them? It's just not going to happen. That's why I think Georgia's going to win.
Who's that coming down the track?
Yeah.
Georgia, right. They're too physical. Notre Dame, not proven, as Lucas said. I'm going to roll with the Bulldogs again. Let's knock off the Fighting Irish here. The Bulldogs are going to reign superior, and we're going to have two SEC teams moving on to the semifinals, and that's going to do it for our college football picks. And we're going to talk about college basketball for just a few minutes as conference play begins this week. And we know the SEC, they're definitely a top when you talk about all of the conferences right now. But then again, we don't know how things are going to shake up. There's no theoretical locks. And again, there's no teams that are out of it yet because conference play, it shakes the whole complexion of a March Madness. We know that. So let's start off with the SEC. And what's the team you think that's going to win this conference?
I feel like there's no other answer except Auburn to go here because Auburn, they've looked so good to begin the year. Their only losses to Duke at Duke in a controversial game. And Tennessee, yeah, they're undefeated, but they just have not played the caliber of teams that Auburn has played. And Auburn just looked more dominant. They're like destroying some of these good teams. So there's really no other way to go here. But it's not like I'd be picking Auburn if I had the option to choose Auburn or any other team. I'd be picking any other team because that's how many good teams there are in the SEC. You can't really say that about the ACC because pretty much everyone's picking Duke right now. But the SEC, it's just a different beast this year in college basketball. But I do think the top dog is Auburn right now, and that's why I'm going to ride with them.
Yeah, right. Obviously, I'm going to pick Auburn as I am an Auburn Tigers fan. But then again, one thing we just have to keep our mind on is that there's not going to be a team that's 20-0 in conference play. Auburn's going to be 16-4, 15-5, even maybe 14-6. That doesn't hurt them at all because they're going to be quad one losses. But nobody's been like 20-0. We always think that, oh, one loss is going to drop you 6 spots in the AP poll. But then you win 2 more and you're going to be back up where you came from.
Yeah.
I'm going to take Auburn, though. We know what they can do. They're quad one wins. They're battle-tested, and they've proven themselves in these tests. So let's move it over to the ACC, where Duke's the favorite.
Yeah. So Duke is definitely the big favorite in the ACC. And the second favorite might actually be my Clemson Tigers right now. Many people will say North Carolina, and you have a good point. North Carolina, they have all the talent. They're always good. But they just haven't looked too good to start the year. I think they'll still make the tournament. I think the top 4 teams in the ACC are definitely Duke, Pittsburgh, North Carolina, and Clemson. Those are the main 4 right now. And then you have a couple other teams like Louisville, SMU, possibly maybe a NC State, all lurking around. Maybe if they have a good run, somehow get in the tournament. But there's just really 4 main teams here. They'll probably be the 4 that get the bye in the ACC tournament. But there's really no other option here to go except Duke. But if I were to pick a team that's not Duke, it's definitely Clemson. And it's not just bias. We're actually a good team. We made the Elite Eight last year. And if you watch our games, it's really hard to stop us in the half court because we have 2 great guards. But it's not even that. Our 2 guards can shoot the ball. They can handle the ball. They don't even really have to score because we have Victor Lockton, a big man who can stand at the top of the key. He can shoot it. He can pump fake you. He can drive. But he can also hit the high-low game down low to Ian Shefflin, who's a beast down in the paint. And it's very tough to stop us, especially when we also have shooters who can knock down threes like Jake Hybrader. So we're definitely going to be a tough out in the ACC this year.
Yeah, the ACC, they're definitely not the best version of themselves this year. But I think I just have to pick Duke. They haven't done anything wrong so far for me yet. They're getting it going, and they don't have to play that tough teams. Cooper Flack, he can get himself settled in the conference play. Same with Kaman Maluak. He's getting settled. Con Knippel. They're all getting ready. John Shire and Duke could be the number 1 overall seed come March. I don't see how they couldn't because you look at these other teams that are in stronger conferences. You compare record. I think Duke's going to have the best record out of any of the Power 4 teams.
Yeah.
So let's move it over to the Big 12.
Well, the Big 12, I think the top dog right now is Iowa State. They only have 1 loss, and that's to Auburn and the Maui on a buzzer beater tip in by Janai Broom. And that was just such an excellent game. And Iowa State is a great basketball team. I think the top three right now in the country are Iowa State, who I'm going to pick to win the Big 12, Duke, the ACC, and Auburn, the SEC. I think those are the three best teams in the country right now. But other teams to watch in the Big 12, Kansas, obviously, they have a lot of talent. We'll see if they can figure it out. They've really struggled to start the year. And then, I could maybe say my sleeper for the Big 12, I feel like that Baylor, they're ranked 25 right now. They're very far down. They were ranked high at the beginning of the year. The key for them is, can VJ Edgecombe get it going? If he can, they could be scary because they got a lot of Norchad O'Meara, Jeremy Roach. They definitely have experience. If they can get their talent starts clicking, they have Jaden Nunn. He's another fast guard. They could possibly make a run in one of these Big 12 tournaments for sure. And it's not just the regular season that decides who's the best in the Big 12. It's like March Madness. It's kind of, if you have one off night, you're not going to win. So numerous teams could win, but I think the favorite's got to be Iowa State.
Yeah, Iowa State, they should definitely be the favorite. But I'm actually going to take Houston in this one. Kind of under the radar. Kelvin Sampson, he's always going to have these scrappy teams. They don't really have the best talent, but they're going to fight. They're going to be physical with you each and every night you step on the court with them. They can get offensive rebounds. Roberts, Francis. These are veteran guys in the Kelvin Sampson system. And we've seen what veterans can do. Sharp, he's really figured it out for Houston now. LJ Cryer always has his chip on his shoulder when he plays against Baylor. And you talk about Baylor, Kansas, they really got to figure things out. And if you drop 3-4 games early in this conference, you're not going to pass a Houston, Iowa State. So for that reason, I'm going to take Houston.
Yeah, and you said physical teams. Another team I just want to touch on real quick, Texas A&M. You do not want to play them, I'll tell you that. They are so scrappy. A three goes up, you got to box out, or else it's a rebound for them. All five of their players are attacking the boards. And if they don't have the most talented team, they're not shooting the ball well at all. Wade Taylor's capable of it. He's kind of a shot chucker, but it doesn't even matter because they're going to get the rebound anyways. They are not a team you want to face, especially when it comes to March Madness, because the rebounding battle is always a big key.
What about the Big Ten?
Well, for the Big Ten just, they don't really have what I could really say a top dog, unlike all these other conferences. They're just a very, very mid-conference all around, and I'm not really a Big Ten fan for any sports. But if I had to pick one team, Michigan State's really impressed me so far, and Jace Richardson's been really good for them, obviously, and they have my favorite nickname, Flight 55, Cohen Carr. He's running the floor, dunking balls left and right, so they're definitely a fun team. But another team, Michigan, with their big men combo, they're scary. Vladislav Golden and Danny Wolf. Danny Wolf,
Ivy
a
boy.
7-footer, dribbling the ball. That's a scary combo. More scary probably than Victor Lockton and Ian Shefflin, like I touched on earlier. But I'd probably pick Michigan State right now if I had to pick a team.
Yeah, I thought you were going to pick my boys from Ann Arbor. That's my pick, Michigan. You know, you got Trey Donaldson, the former Auburn guy. He's really put stuff together for Michigan this year. Danny Wolf, Golden, they were good on kind of mismatched teams last year. FAU wasn't great. Yale wasn't great. And now they get put together, and they've been beasts together. Then you add in some other guys that have been on Michigan. Dusty May, he has a good group of guys. Again, the Big Ten, they don't really have your top team, but if you have to pick one to win the conference, I'll take Michigan.
I mean, Yale was pretty good. They beat you guys in the tournament.
Let's not go over that. You want to go over the Big East?
Sure. So the Big East, I think UConn, obviously, Marquette. Creighton was going to be good, but that Pop Isaacs injury is going to hurt them very badly. But then St. John's is really the team I want to key on here the most. St. John's battles and plays UConn so hard every year. I feel like last year, if they let St. John's in the tournament, they could have went to the Final Four. I'm not even lying. They were so good. They finished the end of the year last year like 10-1, and their only loss was to UConn in the Big East semifinals by like 3 points. And they've kind of carried that momentum over in this year. They always struggle at the beginning of the season, but they only have 2 losses on their record right now. And as they get in the Big East play, it's somewhat of a weaker Big East conference this year. So watch out. If St. John's finds a way to get like a 5 seed, 6 seed, I could see them, if they get hot at the right time, they could beat anybody.
Yeah, and you talk about UConn. They just have to figure out how to play together. Once Hurley gets a squad to do that, they're going to be tough to beat in the Big East. But I'm actually going to go with Marquette because I just love Cam Jones.
Yeah.
He's a natural scorer. He's the best scorer in the country, in my opinion. And if he just scores, David Joplin and Ben Golds, they've been terrible from three. Once they figured out, this Marquette team could be nearly unstoppable because Joplin, last time I checked, was shooting less than 30% from three. Same with Ben Golds. And when Cam Jones gets doubled, who else is he going to swing it to? It's going to be one of those bigs. They get it going, and this Marquette team, I like them to win the Big East.
He could swing it to Stevie Mitchell. Stevie Mitchell, that's my guy.
He's a good defender.
Yeah, he's definitely a tough defender.
He's capable. Anyway, that's going to do it for this Hoop and Helmets episode. For Brody Jacobson and Lucas DeVries, we're signing out.